Yeah, I think, currently our member makeup is mostly coaches, consultants, creatives, content creators, some software developers. So it's a little bit like broad, but we mostly add value in the space of single member LLCs and with the S corp, tax election. So we're like targeting established businesses of one. And what I mean by established, businesses of one is those like an S corp tax election will mostly make more financial sense for someone who is making anywhere between $60,000 to $80,000 like an annual profit. So that kind of like describes, right, like the member that we are targeting or like the member base, within Collective.
Well, hey there, and welcome back to the Driven Woman Entrepreneur Podcast. This is your host, Diane Wingert. Fun facts. Over 1/3 of all U.S. workers are businesses of one, and this number is only expected to rise. But most women who start their own business do so based on passion and purpose. And while they don't mean to, many of them neglect the not so sexy and somewhat confusing back end. Well, I reached out to Claudia Nerio, who is the VP of People at Collective. Collective is the first all-in-one solution for solopreneurs to help close the gap. Claudia and I will cover the common pitfalls of ignoring, bootstrapping, or just frankly half-assing the financial and legal side of your business, what it actually takes to thrive as a solopreneur, and how we are both committed to redefining what it means to make a living from passion and purpose while not ignoring profit. If you ever feel isolated or alone in your solopreneur journey, this conversation is for you. Join Claudia and I while we explore the benefits of tapping into the power of a whole suite of experts who take care of the unsexy but very important back end of your business, allowing you to remain the mistress of your magic. Oh, and spoiler alert, Claudia and I discover that we are both totally fascinated with true crime and make a surprising connection between true crime and entrepreneurship. So be sure to listen for that, and let's get right to the interview. So, Claudia, we have been talking about a couple of things that you and I both have in common. One, we are both obsessed with people, what makes them tick, what triggers them, what drives them. And we are equally obsessed with a specific group of people, which is to say, those who have the audacity to have their own business and to want to make a difference in the world and make a living based on their own talents and merits, whether they call themselves freelancers, solopreneurs, self-employed, gig workers. We're talking about a whole lot of people. Remind me of the specific data point that you had. It was a much higher percentage than I thought.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a report by Zippia where 36% of US workers now engage in some sort of like freelance work. And it is anticipated that that number is going to grow to like over 50%. So that's a big chunk, right, of our US population.
Do you have a feel for how much of that is as a result of the pandemic? Or I think it's been a trend that's been growing for a while, but just got a big bump as a result of the pandemic.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's exactly what the pandemic did, right? For many people, we were at home. It really made us think a little bit more about what our passions are, what like really drives us, what gives us joy in life. And I think it opened the door for a lot of people to think about, and maybe this is the opportunity to be my own boss, right? Like, why not? So I do think that pandemic definitely made those numbers spike higher.
And let's be honest, there's plenty of people who never had any intention of being self-employed, but they kind of got pushed out, forced out, laid off, made redundant, and then couldn't find suitable work. So they became what I call accidental entrepreneurs.
That's an excellent point. Yeah, I agree. We saw like a big shift, right, in how people did work, how people like earned a living during that time. It was a scary time for a lot of folks, right? But I do think it really opened the doors for a lot of just creativity and a lot of just adventure as it relates to how to work now in this new environment.
You're speaking my language. Creativity and adventure are two of my, I think those are like two of my love languages for sure. But I know that just making the decision to hang out your own shingle, so to speak. I used to be a psychotherapist, so that was the term that we use. It's also used by attorneys, accountants, and a lot of self-employed professionals. But there's so much more to this decision than just saying, you know what, I actually kind of like working from home with my dog or cat on my lap and yoga pants, if any pants, on my downstairs. But there's a lot that goes into it once they've made the decision. Making it work is a lot more complicated. What do you think the challenges are that you see from the people that you work with? Because you have so much experience in human resources and you probably have access into a lot of lives, a lot more than I do.
Yeah. I mean, I think one of the scariest things, right, is really taking the jump to say, I can actually earn enough following like my passion, right, to like really make a living, sustain myself. I can probably grow like a very successful business. But like where to start, I think is something that is like scary for a lot of people. How do I even get started? Like, how would I think about, formation or like really starting like my own business? How do I think about the numbers and the paperwork behind it, right? Like, I think a lot of people that go into business for themselves are like really good at what they do, and they have this creative side of them and they have this talent. They want to focus on that. They're driven by focusing on their passion, but not necessarily like setting up like the business and taking care of it, right, on a day-to-day basis. I think that is the scariest, like understanding like the background of having like your own business, how to run it on a day-to-day, the operations of it.
I couldn't agree with you more. As a matter of fact, even going through a master's program in social work and realizing that private practice was an option, I kind of got pushed out of my mental health career and started a private practice because I needed to get out of the environment I was in. And I didn't feel like I was going to find a better situation in another agency. But did I know anything at all about setting up a private practice, which is a sole proprietorship, which like 99% of all businesses in this country are actually sole proprietorships. They're not big corporations. They're teeny tiny little micro businesses. Did my education prepare me for any of that? Not one class, not one lecture. Like it was never even mentioned. And I think because we work with a lot of the same people, tend to be female, tend to be passion driven, purpose driven. Yes, of course, they want to make money. They need to make money. It's not a hobby. But what drives them to start their own business and do their own thing is often the desire to make some kind of difference in the world, to make art, to make people's lives easier, to help others in some way. And the first roadblock is, how do I even do this? Like, how much do I charge? How do I market my services? And then they start realizing, oh, wait a second. Should I just use my own name? Do I create a business entity? Do I need an LLC? Should I have a corporation? Do I need a bookkeeper? Do I need an accountant? Do I need all of the above? And in my experience, a lot of them put it off as long as possible. So they're not actually set up for business. And I'm sure you see the same thing, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Or set it up not correctly, right? And then what are the consequences of that? Like, right, making those mistakes as it relates to like your livelihood, taxes, how to like, how to file like your own like business, tax return, right? How to track like your spend, how to pay yourself. Those are the things that if not done right, could like really jeopardize this dream of, having your own successful like business. And I would add like a layer there, right? How scary is it for someone who's coming from a traditional W-2 to go into like, right, a business of one where you've had like healthcare accounted for, your taxes accounted for, retirement options. And now those are all the things that I think are important to think about, right, as you are venturing out into becoming a solopreneur, a business of one.
You're 100%, 1,000% correct. And it can be really shocking when you have that rude awakening and at the end of your first year, you're meeting with your accountant. They're asking you all these questions and you're realizing, oh, that's a good question. Oh, that's a good question. Oh, that's a really, I should have thought about that. And they're looking at you like, what happened? I once worked with a woman who had a very successful business and kind of just dropped it on me one day that she hasn't filed taxes in 3 years as an, oh, by the way. I'm like, hey, listen, no shame here, but this is not an, oh, by the way. This is kind of a BFD. Like, I wish you told
Yeah.
me sooner. But I also think that there can be a lot of shame and embarrassment because somehow, having your own business, the whole female entrepreneur movement, which has been going on for probably a decade now, one of my beefs is that the big name, what some people call celebrity entrepreneurs or marketing gurus, they're promoting this image of having your own business, especially as a woman, is easy, fast, fun, lucrative AF, and virtually passive. Like lifestyle business, make money as you sleep. All you need is a great offer and grow and scale. And I really don't hear a lot of people talking about the stuff that we're here to talk about today, which is the not so sexy part of the business structure and getting the finances right. And nobody really wants to talk about that because it doesn't sound sexy and exciting.
Yeah. And I think to your point earlier, right? Like maybe a little bit of embarrassment, maybe not really understanding the concepts, right? As like you start out and having to like learn those things and maybe not really being comfortable owning that, hey, I'm starting from a place of not having a whole lot of knowledge on this. So I like need the help.
Yeah. And especially if you are like a grown ass woman, there are plenty of one of the fastest growing groups of female owned businesses is women over 50 venturing out and creating something on their own for the first time ever. So they've got decades of experience being a W-2 employee. All of that stuff on the back end, it's not that they've chosen to be ignorant. They just haven't had any contact with it. They don't really know. So if someone's listening to this thinking, sheesh, I've been in business for 10 years and I still don't understand, if I've got the right business structure, I don't think that's at all unusual or surprising. Do you, Claudia?
No, I agree with you 1,000%. It's to your point, like, the W-2, all of that's taken care of for us already, right? As W-2 employees. And then not having taken that away, I would not know where to start, which is why I love so much, what the team at Collective is doing, because it speaks to me in a sense of everybody has right their dream, their American dream. And, having a company whose mission is to help those people by providing a back office support and providing a group of trusted advisors who specialize in bookkeeping, accounting, formation, tax. That alone is, I think, half the battle, right? Of like getting yourself out there and pursue your dreams and your passion.
When I first came across what you do, I thought, this is such a great example of seeing a need in the market and creating a company to meet that need. Because you're right, nobody goes into their own business thinking, okay, great. I had a job doing one thing, and now I'm going to become an expert in sales and marketing and customer service, and I'm going to become a self-taught bookkeeper or accountant in addition to being the CEO. And I'm going to do all of that. And of course, master all the social media platforms. I'm going to do all of that in addition to practicing my craft. They think they're going to be able to do all that. And many people burn out trying, but
Yeah.
you have come up with a better way. So let's talk about the Collective and the need that it meets to kind of take care of the back end so people can actually work more in their zone of genius and not try to do 17 different jobs.
Yeah, absolutely. You called out a whole lot of jobs. And when you were mentioning all of them, I got a little bit tired, to be honest. It's like, I don't think it's possible for one person to do all of that. I mean, you can try, but to your point, you will absolutely burn out. I think what we're really trying to build, at Collective is really focusing on, businesses of one and bringing that community together so that they can focus on their passion while we provide, that back office support around formation, business tax filing, bookkeeping, accounting, and then also give them the opportunity to join other businesses of one and come into this community and also like network. That is one of like my most liked things that we do is that we have created this community, because being a business of one can get lonely at times, right? Like you don't have like a coworker like sitting next to you, or someone you can like say, hey, do you have 5 minutes to hop on this like Zoom call and let's chat about this thing that we're both like struggling with. You're doing it on your own, right? But joining a place like Collective gives you that network to like reach, to make connections with other individuals who happen to also be businesses of one and could be in the same space as yours, right? That is like, I think like speaks to me, because we're talking about, right, what happened with the pandemic and everybody going into the space of, being a little bit lonely. And I think having a service like Collective, I think, is trying to tackle that, create a community for these folks, but at the same time, help them really build this dream of theirs by providing that back office support that is so important, right, for the success of like people's businesses.
I'm just thinking that when you're a business of one, most of the time, and it takes a while, Claudia, to get to the point where you can have an accountant available to you. Most of the time you're bootstrapping it in the beginning, and where you can have a legal business representative where you can go through the business formation. Like all of the things that you provide, most solopreneurs or businesses of one, soloists, independent professionals, even the ones who know they need those things, assume they can't afford them. And they probably can't for a while, which adds to the problem of they're probably not paying themselves. They're paying a virtual assistant. They're paying for consultation or coaching. But the kind of structural help that they really need, you've not only packaged it all together, but you've created an opportunity for them to be with other people who are doing what they do, which I agree with you. That's probably I think they probably think they're coming for the back end support, but they probably get the most value from the community, because it is lonely in these streets.
Absolutely. I think the community piece, in my opinion, is one of the most valuable, right? But at the same time, then you get that expert support, right? And you get unlimited support through like a relationship manager who's there to like, step in every step of the way and help connect you to the right expert within our organization. Is it like a tax question? Is it like a payroll and accounting question? Is it a formation question? You have, right, like that support. But absolutely, I agree that community piece, it's super valuable to like really help broaden just right the space that you're trying to like go into and just build connection.
Do you think there's a particular type of business of one that is like best suited to what you're creating and what you're providing?
Yeah, I think, currently our member makeup is mostly coaches, consultants, creatives, content creators, some software, developers. It's a little bit like broad, but, we mostly add value in the space of single member LLCs. And with the S Corp, tax election. So we're like targeting established businesses of one. And what I mean by established, businesses of one is those like an S Corp tax election will mostly make more financial sense for someone who is making anywhere between $60,000 to $80,000, like an annual profit. So that kind of like describes, right, like the member that we are targeting, or like the member base, within Collective.
Okay. So it's 60 to 80K profit in their business.
Correct.
Got it. So yeah, they would need to be somewhat established. And I can see a lot of people, especially the consultants and coaches I know, who are coming out of a role in a business where they will be able to continue to serve a lot of the same clientele that they have been serving, especially if they are a consultant who's been working in a big consulting firm. Now they're going out on their own, and a lot of if they don't have a non-compete, a lot of their clients will come with them. Could you give me an example of maybe a client success story or an ideal? It doesn't have to be a real person. It can be a composite, like to help people see like, oh, these are my people and this is what's possible for me. And maybe talk about how you serve this person and what you're able to provide to them that they've either been doing on their own or going without.
Yeah, I mean, there's like several like success stories that come to mind just from, recent campaigns where I've been exposed to some of the member stories. We recently ran a campaign where we brought a lot of these folks together. It's called Faces of Collective, and did like a photo shoot with them, which was like so great because then they all got, again, going back to that community aspect, they all got together. The event closed like with a nice dinner. These are folks that, continue to like stay in touch beyond, right? Like these campaigns or these touch points that they have with, the collective community. I think there's several, like one we just had as a guest speaker, even at one of our company events, who wrote a book about curiosity, right? And the brilliance of curiosity, and came and talked to us about his life experiences and how being a collective member has like really shaped the way that, he does business, right? His book, actually, I have a copy and I need to start reading it. He shared some copies with some of the collective employees, was something that really stuck out to me because hear him talk about his passion for just curiosity and his life story was very inspiring to me personally, but also to our team. We got a lot of just really great feedback on that event. But one thing that really stuck out to me is like, this individual wrote a book. Imagine what like an important like milestone that is in someone's life, right? Someone truly feels very passionate about like what they're doing, to the point that they've, published a book. They are now advertising their book. They're just doing speaking engagements and like really pursuing, right, like their passion. They're not worried about like, oh man, are my are my business tax return going to be filed? How is like my accounting coming along? They trust the collective team to take care of that and for them. And so that's one story that really stands out to me as one successful one, right? To hear someone who's out there doing their thing, following their passion, not really worried about how they're running their business on the day to day, because they trust the collective team to do that for them.
There's so many people that are saying, I managed people for a living in my former life, and I don't want to manage people. I would say I was a single parent of 3 for a decade. So I do not want to manage people because I had enough of that during that phase of my life. But doing everything yourself is exhausting. It's inefficient. And you're probably not doing most of those roles nearly as well as someone else could. We've all heard, I think the book, The Big Leap, and the concept of your zone of genius, I think it's been around for 20 years. I talk about it a lot. Lots of coaches and consultants talk about working in your zone of genius and spending more time in your zone of genius. But as a business of one, you're prevented from doing that by all these other roles that we talked about. And if you don't want to manage people, you want to have a simple, streamlined, profitable business. You don't want to have a big team. I have this person for this and that person for this. And like, it's better than you doing it, but it's inefficient. And there's all that management. Just the idea of being able to just take all of those really crucial pieces that make a business in compliance and successful are what you do for them. So to me, that's an automatic translation into spending more time in their zone of genius and having a lot more peace of mind while not having to manage more people than you want to.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you and I chatted a little bit about this last time, right? Around focusing on your areas of like expertise and maybe not taking on like too much, right? What that does for us when we commit to taking on too much, that spoke a lot to me in our last conversation. And I think that you're right. I think that oftentimes, right, we have the mentality of like, I can do it all. I can handle it all. I can do it all. I got it. And in particular, I think as a solopreneur, that probably is a very common, right? Like mentality of I can do it all. And it oftentimes is like I have to do it all, right? Like that's feels a little bit more like it's a must as opposed to that first statement. But how wonderful it is, right? That you don't, that there is a solution, out there that can take away some of the areas that may not be, strengths and like giving them, to the experts to like take care of for yourself. And you can focus on the things, again, going back to that really strike joy in what you're pursuing.
There's a lot of mindset work that goes into making this decision, isn't there? Because I'm just thinking about some of the clients that I have worked with and even clients I'm working with right now, where they understand that they're holding themselves back by not delegating or not hiring help. They understand that they would have more freedom, more ease, and actually could spend more time doing what they actually are really good at and love doing if they would let go of these other things, whether they're editing their own podcast, they're doing their own accounting, they're figuring out the legal stuff. They understand it intellectually, Claudia, but being able to like make the decision to get that kind of support comes right up against the thought you were just sharing that I have to do this. And I've unpacked this with a few of my clients who had parents who maybe they grew up working class, or maybe they were immigrant families where hard work was really valued and people were really proud about working hard. So here's this lovely entrepreneur who wants to work in their zone of genius, which when we're in our zone of genius, it doesn't feel like hard work because we love it and because we're good at it. And because it might even come naturally and easily. So deciding I could get paid for this thing that I really, really enjoy, and I can get help with the parts that I don't enjoy, means you really have to come up against all that mental programming from the past that says you need to work hard for your money. Work needs to be hard, and that's like a badge of honor. Well, you might want to think about shifting those thoughts, because I only know of one direction that can go, and that's straight to burnout. It just may take you longer to get there. But do you see that in people who've like made the decision to join the collective? They've made the decision to let this stuff go, but then they keep holding on to it.
I saw that like firsthand, right? Which is why I love, what like we're doing here. It's really shifting the mentality of like, you don't have to work as hard. There are things that, are better set to leave to others to do. The delegation piece, you can leave to others to do and focus on this one area where I think I can add like a lot more value and have like a higher impact. And so that was, that really says, a lot. I apologize. There's like a big distraction. Yeah.
We never really know when the outside helpers are going to be around, and the dogs just can't resist them, can they?
I am so sorry. I like saw the background and just got lost a little bit in what I was saying.
You know what's funny is that this is one of the reasons why people decide to work for themselves and work from home, because we want to spend some time with our pets, right?
Oh, God, absolutely.
But then it's undeniable. There are times when being in the same space as our pets is inconvenient and distracting.
I agree 1,000%. I mean, I love the work from home setup. Initially, it started with the pandemic, was my first ever venturing into a home work from home setup, and I did not like it initially. I'll say that much. I was not used to like being a little bit more disciplined and having to create a space, a schedule, and an environment that allowed me to still be productive, but in a more, laid back setup. Having done it now for 3+ years, I don't think I could go back full time to an office. I really enjoy having the dogs around, even as crazy as that may get at times. I think it gives me a little bit more space to do my work in a way that I think allows me to just be more successful with my team that I am supporting at the end of the day. It gives me a little bit more flexibility to balance that being at home and, being VP of people during the day.
Yeah, I think most people had that experience, Claudia, where I actually luckily made the shift a little earlier in 2017. So by the time the pandemic came around, I was already fully acclimated to the work from home lifestyle. But also, I chose it and it was forced on millions of people. And I think whenever we feel like we are opting into something, even if it's hard, even if it's a lot harder than we expected, the fact that we chose it, that always feels better because you feel like you have some sense of control. For people who, as a result of the pandemic, got pushed into working from home, they didn't choose it. They had no choice about it. But I think one of the things that's been so fascinating about these last few years is how many people who really fought it, kicking and screaming, who really thought this is the worst. Like, I don't want to get sick, but I hate being home and disconnected from other people, and I feel isolated and lonely, and I don't have any reason to get dressed anymore. But slowly but surely, the vast majority of people have adjusted, have adapted. And the one thing that they don't love about it is so much of what we've been talking about is this sense of isolation. Now, I don't know about the other people in the collective, but certainly most of the soloists that I know and my clients do not come from entrepreneurial families. They do not come from a culture where lots and lots and lots of people are self-employed. So many of them don't even have a single friend or relative who works for themselves. So part of that loneliness, I think, is not just the fact that we might be isolated in our house with nobody knowing what we're doing, but that we might not have very many people within our social network who actually understand that we're working when we're at home and that you can work from your pajamas. They think they can just knock on your door or text you or ask you to run an errand for them because if you're at home, you're available. Do your people in your collective ever talk about that as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I can even relate to even some of our employees as they talk about, the setup of work from home. And a lot of them obviously share that space with other family members and people feeling like, oh, if you're not in a Zoom meeting, that means you're not really working. So that means you're available to do, all of these other things. Absolutely. I think that there is a retraining of thinking about what does work like now look like for you as as a solopreneur, really creating that almost like a bit of a discipline that I talked a little bit about
Mm-hmm.
earlier as I connected it to my own experience, to make sure that you're creating that space where you're like, I am focused on this now, and how can I make that space, that time, that environment conducive to what I'm trying to accomplish. I think that's what a lot of people, right, that were forced into the work from home had to learn to do and do well and adapt to fairly quickly. And I think, in our collective members, I'm sure this is something that comes up all the time, right? If you're not sitting in front of a desk, from 9 to 5, is that really working? And so I think it's, again, going back to creating that space, that environment, and that time where you are dedicated to following your passion and making that work for yourself. And there's the beauty, right, of the collective is that you have that community who probably very much feels the same way. And we've created, right, that space for people to share ideas and really network and share what's worked really for them. I think that advice sharing and having that space can be very valuable. It's proven very valuable for me and for some of our employees as they also experience, right, the work from home and the loneliness challenges.
You said earlier when we were first starting talking about the statistics that you believe that the number is going to grow. I have my own thoughts about this, but I'm curious why you're predicting that there are going to be more soloists, more businesses of one, more solopreneurs in the future. Tell me why.
Yeah. To me personally, it feels like this is the the desire to venture out on your own and to be your own boss has always like been there, right? Now, I think with the work from home crisis, I say that in
Mm-hmm.
parentheses because in reality it ended up being a blessing for like a lot of people, right? Has more than forced people. I think it's created businesses like Collective that have found like a space in the market, a high demand space in the market, to be able to make it easier for people to go out and be a business of one and pursue their dream, right? And that's in the numbers now at 36% of the US workforce indicate that they're only going to like go higher, because it's the availability of tools and like resources, in my opinion, to be able to do that, and the education that's out there to be able to become a business of one is more available now than it has been in the past, in my opinion.
And the tools just keep getting easier and easier, easier to access, more affordable, easier to learn. I mean, the number of people I know who now run online based businesses, digital businesses as coaches and consultants who would
Yeah.
not consider themselves even a little bit tech savvy is astonishing. I don't
Yeah.
come from a generation that grew up with technology. I am literally running a business where I'm up to my eyelashes in technology every day. And because these tools are proliferating and they're widely available and they keep becoming more and more and more user friendly, I think we're going to even see people who would have taken the retirement track say, I'm going to retire from this and now I'm going to start my own thing doing that. I think we're going to see a lot of those folks, starting businesses.
Yeah, I agree 1,000%. The technology, the tools, I mean, they're all like positioned to help support that. To like, how amazing is it that you can be on a completely like different country doing what like you really enjoy and connecting to someone across the globe, right? To like really deliver your service, your area of craft to someone across the world because of technology.
Agreed. You mentioned something a little while back that I wanted to circle back to if I can. You said that if you start your own business based on passion and purpose, which hand raise, right? And the majority of coaches and consultants would agree with that as well. And you don't understand some of the business basics, the unsexy things that you take off people's hands. And because you don't know about them, you don't do them, or you know enough about them to be intimidated by them, so you don't do them, or you fail to recognize just how important and necessary they are, so you don't do them or you don't do them well. What are some of the mistakes that you see people making that I want the listeners to, if you're making these mistakes and you might not even recognize you're making them, you probably need to migrate over to the collective, because there are mistakes that we can make and recover from, and there are ones that tend to get worse over time. So what are some of the things that you see when people do join the collective? They had been making these mistakes and maybe didn't even know it. What are some examples?
Yeah, I think in my opinion, it's probably not having a really good understanding of the S Corp tax election and how to be able to right capitalize or take advantage of some of the tax savings that come from an S Corp tax election. It is very complicated to understand. I am very amazed when I hear, the experts in our team like talk about it, and I feel like I learn something new every time. But like on average, our members are saving anywhere like $10,000 on like tax savings. That's like on average, right? By just opting to do like the S Corp tax election. I think it's learning how to like pay yourself, right, as a business of one and doing it right and like really taking advantage of those tax savings, I think can be like really critical to the success of a business. Like understanding the ins and outs of that, it's tricky, like I said earlier, but I think would be beneficial for anyone, right, who is in this area trying to like really grow their business, who is trying to like get it right and avoid those mistakes. I think that would be the one that stands out for me.
Well, I like that you are choosing to focus on the carrot and not the stick, Claudia, because I'm going to guess that most people would think, oh God, I really haven't been addressing this and I know it's going to catch up with me. They want to avoid the stick. So they're like, okay, I'm going to let these experts do this for me so I can stop waking up in a cold sweat, versus you're saying, hey, guess what? If you do this right, I can save you 10 large. How about that?
It's in my personality to always think about the positive.
I think that was one of the first things that you and I connected over in our first conversation, was just like how much we both love people, how much we both love helping people, and how relentlessly freaking optimistic and silver lining focused we both are. And then we found out today that we also are both addicted to true crime podcasts.
I love when I meet people who share in that passion with me.
I used to feel it was a little bit weird, but honestly, and I don't know if this is a female solopreneur thing, but most of the women I know who have their own business, if you ask, they like true crime. And I've thought, okay, because I'm a people person and I'm always into like what makes people tick and why. So far, we'll have to have another conversation about this when one or both of us figure it out or have some more evidence. But I think it has to do with the fact that women in particular who start their own business tend to be smart, savvy, creative, risk takers, and they love figuring out and solving problems. So when you're listening to the true crime, you tell me if you do this. I know it's what I do. I'm literally trying to figure it out while they're telling the story. I do it on Netflix too. I'm like, ooh, what, like who's the bad guy and how did they do it and where did they hide the evidence? I'm literally challenging myself to figure it out and solve the problem and not just wait for them to tell me. Same?
I am with you 1,000%. I like start watching it and I'm like, I already know who did it. Just based on like the way that they're communicating, they're answering those questions. They sound very, very guilty in my opinion.
So I am so much more informed about the benefits of the collective now than in our previous conversations. And I know there are people listening that are like, gee whiz, it's really time for me to stop faffing around and doing all this stuff myself or trying to cobble together a bunch of different experts who don't communicate with each other. Your solution is not only elegant and practical, it has the added benefit of connecting people with others just like them. So what is the best way for anyone listening to take the first step toward you to find out more?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, first step, probably visiting our website, clicking that get started button will definitely connect you with someone who's an expert on our side and can like really speak to like the uniqueness of like your own business and your own situation and walk you through how Collective can help service, and help you in pursuit of your dream.
Hey there, it's Diane, and I want to thank you for being a listener to the Driven Woman Entrepreneur podcast. But you do know that you can only learn so much and change so much in your business and life as a result of consuming content, which is why I'm really excited to announce that my signature framework, the Boss Up System, is now available as a one-on-one coaching experience. How to know if this is right for you and if this is the right time? Ask yourself this. If you started your business to create a profitable, right-sized offer that is rewarding and allows you to stand out and be sought after, but what actually has happened is that you are over-delivering and undercharging and just not reaching your ideal clients with the perfect offer you have for them, this may be exactly what you need. Hey, you already know you like what I have to say and how I think. What if this is the year that you have my eyes and ears on your business and really help you move the needle? Click on the show notes and see if this isn't the right time for you. I'd love to see your name on my calendar.
We had a strategy. You said, well, you can do it all. You can do it all, Jan. You just can't do it all this way. And have you ever thought about And that's where you put those first 3 pillars. And you said, this business will support and feed and start this business. And then that business will create this 3rd business. And it's this perfect wheel. And once I saw that, once I understood it, it was just like I was off to the races.